Whereas the discovery that we're talking about today is about a mutual discovery on, the coach and the coachee. What are our preferred styles on communication, on thinking, on, the expectations that the client has? Do we have a good fit? Okay, that's where we are. So it's really about the connection. So I'm glad you guys picked it up. Lovely. So preparation is largely, as a coach, I want to understand more about who is this person, who the coachee is, right? And a very simple model that helps us understand a very pictorial representation is the iceberg model. It's a very, very well accepted popular coaching model. What does it tell you?
Is there a question to us?
What does an iceberg represent for you? That was my question.
Okay, sure. So iceberg to me represents whatever is above the surface, is something that you could see with the bare eyes, with the naked eyes, but there's a lot beneath that which supports what you can see above the surface. And as a coach, counselor, mentor, trainer, I think we need to go, while we are looking at what is at the surface, we also need to analyze and need to see what's lying beneath, because what lies beneath is what supports what is on the surface.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Another thing is it's more of a deep learning.
Deep learning for whom? Very interesting.
Both. It's for between the coach and coachee both.
Okay.
But then only your trust and relationship is formed.
Okay. Thank you. That's a great input again. Deep learning.
Yeah, okay. And at the same point of time, now skills and knowledge is something which appears on top, which is showcased often.
Yeah.
But not necessarily the traits, the motives will be appearing. So probably this is how I see. I mean, again, you have every right to correct me. So as a coach, what are the things we need to understand, like from the coachee?
Yeah.
It might be by means of powerful questioning, etc. We need to first understand what they're made up of, how they are, like their intents, etc., etc.
Absolutely. I liked how you used that. We need to understand what they are made up of. And what are we, each of us, made up of? So all of you are right. Okay, fantastic answers.
Just to add,
yeah, go ahead, Deepak.
That also maybe when we talk about coaching, normally what happens is that the judgment, right? There is always a filtered judgment, even if we are a coachee, about a person, about their looks, about the way they are dressing up, right? So when we are meeting up, I mean, it is important to see coachee with an intention, right intention, how we are looking at them, irrespective of their gender, culture, age, or any other factors.
Staying non-judgmental, absolutely. And you're right, again, that, it's a default. This is how human beings are wired, right? This is how we process information. We classify and segregate information as we see it. And it happens almost without our conscious thinking. But however, we must make an attempt as coaches to suspend that. But more importantly, when you're working with a client, like an iceberg shows only about 20% above the water, okay? 80% of the iceberg lies below the waterline. And like that, like Raghunandan said, what are we made up of? What is the person made up of? We are made up of our values, the hats we wear, the roles we play, the self-image that we have of ourselves, the roles that we associate ourselves with, our thinking, our beliefs, our experiences, our education, exposure, so many things that shape the way we think, the way we feel, the way we take our decisions. And eventually, ultimately, it shows up in the skills that we demonstrate, the knowledge that we demonstrate. But there's a lot more that's going on beneath the waterline to support what's showing above the waterline. So one way of interpreting this model is also that a client may demonstrate something visibly, or may have a stated problem, or may have a stated objective or an agenda for coaching. We need to do a little bit more to understand where it's coming from. And for the moment, I want to relate it back to our discovery. Absolutely, like we spoke about, stay non-judgmental, stay open-minded. The skills, knowledge, the stated agenda, what is visible of the client is just about 20%, and everything else is we don't know that, and we do need to figure out what that is. Okay, so we do need to understand the coaching. And
Excuse
how do we do that?
me, ma'am. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Vinny, is that you? Go ahead, please.
So, ma'am, like there are, yeah, it's me. So there are people there, like there are coaches, students we have, those are like a mixed personality. Even though we try to figure out, we have figured out what they are at certain situation, what they need. But instantly, if we meet them second time, their whole personality has changed, everything, and we have to start from scratch. Hello?
Okay, what is your question, Vinny?
So what do we do in that manner? Like if you want to figure out for that particular kind of coaching, like you're saying, we go through this iceberg model. So in that manner, what would you do
Okay, so I'll
for
give,
that
yeah. So
particular
Vinny,
kind of coaching?
okay, so that's a fantastic question, Vinny, and you will have so much discovery as you go along the program. You will discover numerous responses to your own question. You will discover a lot of tools. You'll discover a lot of strategies that you can use depending on what's going on with the client. But the short answer to your question at this point would be, when we are discovering what's going on, the idea is to explore, and let's talk about that.
Yes.
Simply ask, who am I as a coach? Who am I to know who this person is? Where is he coming from? Or what his person, even what his personality is not my business to know. But there are ways that are available to us to find out. Okay, something that we can do before, and all of this is happening. Remember, this is all happening pre-coaching. We haven't even started coaching yet. So the change in the stated agenda and all of that is going to come, even if it has to come, Vinny, is going to come much, much later. This is our preparation phase. Before we have even started coaching, I want to find out a little more about who this person is, understand this human being a little more, so that I know as a coach how I can flex to meet the requirements of this particular client. Okay, so this is about the coach preparing, right?
Yeah.
You can simply ask. And a lot of this questionnaire is actually one version of there is there in your study guide as well. There is no prescription here. You can make your own. What would you like to understand? When I want to, start out, I typically ask, what are your goals? What are your values, fears? What are your motivators? What are your strengths? When do you function at your best? How do you respond to pressure? What is the most important thing that you want to achieve? What kind of legacy are you looking to build for yourself? Things that, you will personalize the equation, and will also, these are the questions that will allow a person to open up. We can also ask very specific questions. Why come to you as a coach? Why are they exploring coaching? There are many ways on models of development available, and why do they reach out for coaching in particular? So what's their understanding? What's their expectation? What are they looking for in a coach? What qualities is a client seeking in a coach? Very important to ask. And as the client surfaces their questions and as the client answers your queries, respond. Because they may have some preconceived notions, they may have some concepts, there will be a level of awareness. You'll possibly, most likely, have an opportunity to build the awareness that the client is bringing at this stage. Because you will certainly know a lot more about your own style of coaching, about coaching itself, about what you can accomplish, what you can enable for the client, etc. This is a great opportunity to raise the client's awareness about what you can enable for them.
All right. Thank you.
Pleasure. So this is a session that we typically call a discovery or a chemistry session. In the coaching world, it's also called a chemistry session. It's essentially to determine are the coach and the client a good fit for each other. Often what will happen in especially in the corporate scenarios or in a scenario where the client is still deciding, they may choose to talk to a couple of people before they make up their mind. In a corporate scenario, typically they may have an ask that I would love to work with a coach who comes from this specific kind of a background. I would love to work from a coach who comes from, let's say, for example, the banking industry or the life science industry. And they'll speak to a couple of people and they'll say, okay, I'm going to take a decision based on the discovery session. So as a coach, it's a very, very powerful opportunity for us to raise awareness and make our impacts, to communicate what we are able to deliver and enable for the client, what kind of impact we have delivered before, and so on. It's our opportunity as well to help settle the clients if they have any doubts or concerns, to help settle their fears as well. Good so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit. What kind of questions would be asking? What kind of questions would you like to ask of a client?
I would rather start from their childhood, that where are they from, what they like. I would rather start from their past than come to the present.
Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts from the group? That's a good idea, Vinny. Understand,
Okay,
let them connect with themselves. It can be very powerful, especially, if somebody is coming to you with a specific challenge in their current scenario and you help them, you take them back to who they really are and, what their background is and so on. It can be a very powerful way for the client to connect with themselves.
So are we looking at the questions that we would ask at the start of the coaching session, which is to build connection?
Before the coaching, when you're still when you're meeting the client for the first time or having the first connection with the client,
Okay.
where at the end of the session, it's about a mutual fit, right? It's about the client discovering who you are as a coach, as much as the coach discovering what's the client looking for, who is this person, what is he looking for, and collectively taking a call at the end of the session. Will we work well for each other?
Okay, so with that clarity, I think apart from other questions which would help me build a rapport and establish a relationship with the client, which is general chit-chatting, two questions I would for sure ask. One is, what is it that he or she, what is it that they are trying to achieve out of this session? Okay, at the end of the session, what is the outcome that they are looking at? And my second question would be, how would that outcome help them either succeed in their life or maybe achieve their life purpose or their life goals? As in general, how would that outcome help them? Yeah, okay. I think I'll do that.
Okay, lovely.
Probably before we start, it is at least like good to understand the basic demographics, very basics like name, gender, age, kind of what they're doing, where they are, at a very brief level, where they want to go, etc. Or what is the expectation? Because like if expectation is something that mature, mentoring level, example.
Yeah.
So until unless that domain knowledge is there, or we are very strong in that knowledge, we may not be able to do that. If it is coaching and enabling, then that's basically might be a different criteria. So understanding the person from an outset probably would be a good starting point, so that further leading questions can be asked.
So you want to build the context, you want to give some comfort to the client and then see where it needs to go.
Probably that's what I mean. I'm thinking at this point of time. Yeah, you are there further to guide.
Monica is also sharing that I would rather discuss about his current mindset and then decide whether to go in the detail, and then figure that slowly in the discovery session. Okay, that's lovely.
Yes.
As
So
well.
Meghna, wait. So I just want to respond to the point of Seema. Seema, what you have explained was a formal coaching session. When you start a formal coaching session, at the start you look for the agreement on the outcome of the session. So you have stated what a coach does at the start of the session. Discovery session is not a coaching session. Discovery session is understanding session, where the coachee also will ask questions to the coach to understand who the coach is, and coach of course will ask questions to the coachee to understand who the coachee is, where there is a mutual objective to know each other and see whether each other are fit to themselves. So there is no set agenda, there is no set outcome, there is no set goal. What is the goal of the discovery session? To understand the fit and to understand each other better. So it is a bit of unstructured session, it is a bit of creative session, right? It is a bit of informal session and not a formal session, like a coaching session wherein in the initial few minutes you immediately talk about the outcome of the session. So the Seema, is this clear to you?
Yes, it is clear. So I would not start with this. If you remember what I said, with the general questions on building the rapport and establishing the relationship, the two questions for sure that I would, this is after that. When I said I'll build the rapport, establish the relationship, after that, two questions that I would for sure ask is, maybe the sequence of the questions may change as you said, but these two questions would certainly help me prepare myself, if at all they choose me as a coach, prepare myself for the further discussion. So yeah, I agree to it. Initial questions would be on building the rapport and establishing the relationship, knowing each other more.
Yeah. So the means if you go for the sequence is first understanding and then rapport, because otherwise you can't build rapport. So the discovery session is a bit different, right? Discovery session means it is not that I'm only responding to you, right? So I'm responding on a point. The point is, do not think that the discovery session is a formal session like a coaching session wherein you have to think about the outcome or the objective. No. It is an informal session. Understand each other, have a chit chat with each other, and during that process, as you understand each other better, of course develop trust, intimacy and rapport, which starts from a discovery session. Okay. Yeah.
So it's like general chat when we meet somebody at a networking event.
Correct.
So it's okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm having a little confusion here.
Can I share an example? Can I share an example of a chemistry session?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was talking a few days ago with a gentleman who's based in the US, who's been in the US for the last 15 years. Okay. And he was speaking to me. He was also speaking to a couple of other people to figure out who would make sense for, a coaching that he's looking for. Okay. So it was really a chemistry session. Luck would have it, he asked me, so where are you? What time? It's really early in the morning for you. So we were having a conversation 7:30 in the morning because late evening for him and early morning for India, time zone difference and all that. And then he suddenly says that, oh, you're in Mumbai. Where in Mumbai do you stay? And I told him the suburb where I stay in Mumbai. And he's like, that's where I grew up. My schooling's been there. And then, of course, my next question was which school? Because my daughter is also schooling in Chembur right now. So which school? And then, so that little bit of a connect that happened, now that was a rapport. It came into the session. My discovery focus would be more about, so what are you looking for? What style of coaching would work for you? I know you have a time zone constraint. What would be a good time? How frequently would you like to connect? What kind of experience are you looking? What nature of goals are you looking to solve? I mean, how's your journey as a professional been? How long have you been in the US? So my questions were around exploring who you are. Where are you coming from? Where has your experience reached you so far? You get you get the difference. The repo question was, oh right, Chembur, I grew up in the 14th road, I went to the school and so on. So that is okay. Discovery was, and his questions to me were, have you worked in the data and analytics space before? Have you done media organizations before? Have you worked with, what seniority of leadership have you worked with, etc. So when he was asking me discovery questions as a coach, he was trying to figure out what's the scale and level of leadership I have addressed. And when I was trying to understand him as a client, I was trying to figure out what's the kind of person is, what is motivating him, what's the nature of challenges that he's currently facing, and so on. So I'm trying to understand as a client where the person is coming from. He's trying to understand as a client where the coach is coming from. And it is a mutual discovery to understand, will we work, will we gel with each other? Are we a good fit for a coaching relationship with each other? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Ma'am, at this point, would it be advisable to ask a question, that because that would have been of immense interest to me, to find out his relationship that he shares with his immediate family, his friends, his colleagues. So you think this would be the right time to ask him that, because that would reflect a lot about him, how he's perceived as a person, how he is.
Maybe, Nama, maybe. Okay. I wouldn't necessarily say a yes or a no, because I'm very cognizant that people may be comfortable sharing it until you have some trust and rapport in the equation. Somebody may be comfortable sharing it. Somebody may be more comfortable sharing it a little later.
A little later, right? Yeah.
So
I thought as much.
Depends. You have to take a judgment call on how the conversation is going.
Right, ma'am.
I think, if I can add a little bit, I think, talking about the hobbies of the person you were trying to deal with would really help.
Absolutely.
Can't hear you, Himanshu. Can you please repeat that question?
I just said,
Himanshu, let me just summarize that quickly in interest of time. He was talking about hobbies. So hobbies, interests, passions, I think these are some very great points to explore who the person is. And I also have a comment from Monica in the chat that I would like to build a fit in the discovery. If that naturally connects, the best thing would be to go ahead on both the sides. So that is obviously, absolutely, Monica, that's the agenda that we are trying to focus on by the means of discovery. Are you all comfortable? I see several hands which are raised. Are they not lowered, or are they raised right now? Okay, thank you. Himanshu, do you have a question?
I have already told you about the hobbies, passion, and all those things. I think, that you have taken up very good. Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, lovely. No, because your hand is still showing raised.
All right, I'll just take that.
That's fine. Okay, so lot of what we spoke about. It's a mutual interview.
Excuse me, before you start, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I have a question, that this discovery chemistry session that you're talking about, is this the same as connection that is mentioned in the triangle? Because in that also there is a discovery phase.
No.
Which comes after the outcome. We decide the outcome, then the discovery comes.
Yes, I understand your question. And Anupama, no, the answer is no. The discovery phase, when you see that in the pyramid, I think we just started on that note in the beginning of the session. That discovery phase is about the client's discovery about themselves. It's about their self-awareness. It's about increasing and expanding their awareness. Whereas at this phase, we are still at the bottom of the triangle. We are still.
So this is same like this lies at the connection level, right?
At the connection level.
Absolutely. Okay.
So we are still trying to discover at this point in time. Don't be misled by the word discover. We are still
right because
are we a good fit. is this client a good fit for me as a coach? Am I a good fit for this client? What do I think of it, and what does the client think of it? The idea is to get to a mutual
So
agreement.
this is more about connection phase you're telling, right?
Absolutely.
Fine, thanks.
So here, both coach and the coachee are discovering themselves, each other rather, and the coachee would discover from the viewpoint whether I would want to hire this person as a coach or not. Right?
Absolutely, that's the bottom line, right?
Okay,
session where Seema, you would talk about your commercials. You would also talk about your time availability. How frequently would you propose connecting?
Yeah, now you're talking commercials. Okay, great.
Because when at the end of this conversation, the client needs to be able to decide, yes, I want to work with this coach, or no, for whatever reason, right? And similarly, as a coach, you want to be able to take a decision on, yes, I would love to coach this client, or no, I don't think this client is coachable at this point. Whatever be the mutual decision that you need to take. Yes, Deepak has a question. Deepak, go ahead.
Yes, Meghna, I have two questions. One is that that when we talk about this discovery session, right? Is it like one session, or it can be more than one session? That is first question I have.
Okay.
And the second is, I mean, how I see, I mean, it looks like more like understanding the requirement.
Understanding the person, yeah. So Deepak, I'll answer both your questions. It is typically one session. There may be instances when a client comes back with a follow-through question.
All right.
Okay, but if that happens, then I haven't really done a good job as a coach in my discovery session. Because that discovery session is my opportunity as a coach to increase client's awareness in whichever aspect he has a concern or a question as well, right?
Right.
So ideally, I should have addressed his concerns, questions, what he's looking for, and so on. But yes, there are cases when a client may come back saying, hey, you know what, Meghna, you said that to me when we spoke the first time, and I was wondering if I've understood this correctly. And you know what? So there are times when a client may come back with a question, and at the most, it should be that. It shouldn't become a repetitive session.
So yeah, in this case, the first 5-10 minutes should be the greatest USB as a coach. We have to mind read him and convince him. And so in that context, so what is your take on how best as a coach, we have to use that first 5-10 minutes? Generic, do you have any preparation for that?
Lovely. Yes, great question. Great question, Lakshmanan. And we are going to cover the responses to that in a little more detail as we go along now. So there are a couple of some very specific things we need to do to prepare and start on a best foot forward, so to say. And we'll be talking about it in a couple of minutes. We are just coming to it. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Are we clear with what we are determining to do here until this point? What is the objective of discovery?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The other element, in order to get the client to open up and take a decision in our favor, cannot happen without this very, very important coaching competency, which is building trust and building rapport. Okay. How do we establish rapport? Being genuine, showing concern, showing empathy, being respectful. And this is where we had earlier comments, I think Raghunandan, who said being non-judgmental, being open-minded. Absolutely, absolutely essential to building a rapport. Establishing clear agreements, not being ambiguous, being very clear and open and transparent in our communication. What we can deliver and what we can't deliver, how would we like to deliver, how frequently would I make myself available, Am I okay to extend time? So sometimes, for example, a client will ask me that, okay, you're charging me this much, but is it per hour or is it per session? How long is each session going to be? Okay, so obviously things like that. So when they're putting their money in investing something which is into their own growth and development, they really want to know, what am I getting into, right? And they may have questions. So be transparent, be clear. Clients may sometimes have beliefs which are very contrary to our own beliefs, okay? And we have to be respectful that it's another person with another set of experiences. It's a different iceberg, remember. What's making up that person is a very different mix. And hence what's showing up in their views, beliefs, in their behavior, in the outcomes that they are experiencing in their life are going to be very different. And it's okay. As a coach, I'm going to suspend any judgment. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Lovely.
Yes.
Let's see a video that talks about trust and building intimacy. This is building trust and intimacy. We are talking with a very focused way in today's session. We're talking it on a very focused way for the purpose of discovery. Okay, it's also a very important coaching competency, and we'll look at it in more detail from a coaching perspective. But right now, let's look at it from a discovery perspective.
What affects people's ability to trust you? Well, remember, in different countries, even within this country, there are a lot of different cultures. In some cultures, deep trust is gained very quickly up front. In other cultures, it takes a little bit longer to get to that deeper trust. And so to remember, respect the culture of the individual who you are coaching. Deepening the trust with them also allows your counterpart to feel supported by you. And that support also allows you to be able to challenge them in a very relevant and strong fashion. Actually, in ways that sits easiest with your counterpart. So remember, trust and intimacy is built over the journey of your coaching. The culture of the individual does matter. It does make a difference. And that trust allows you to both support and challenge in respectful ways.
So culture is important, being respectful is important. But there are 4 things that really go into building trust. Clarity, proof of integrity, how frequently are we going to be in connect, and at what depth are we going to have the conversation. So clarity of process, what could that mean? At a discovery, at this point in time, when you're building connection and you're talking about the process, what could clarity of process mean?
How many sessions, frequency, how much time it may
How long
take?
the session would go?
How long the session would go? What frequently will I connect? Also, what is coaching? Maybe the client doesn't know what coaching can enable. If the client is looking for some advice, then that's not going to be supported by coaching. Or if he has some other significant issue that needs to be addressed elsewhere, then we clarify that, look, this is what coaching can enable for you. This is where coaching is going to be of use to you. How frequently do I connect? What's my own style of coaching? What's my background? What's my experience? What kind of impact have I delivered in the past using my coaching? Can I offer a couple of recommendations, or can I have a couple of referrals? Would you like to talk to one of my clients to help you understand their experience better? Would you like to? So clarity of the process. Integrity. What does integrity mean?
It's honesty and committing to your words.
Committing to your words, being honest.
Being transparent.
Being transparent, absolutely.
Keeping yourself confidential completely.
Confidentiality, correct. So when you are in congruence with what you are saying and who you are, you're coming from a place of integrity. A very simplistic, I'm using a very simplistic definition, that there is no disconnect between what you're sharing with a client and what you actually practice or who you actually are. When the two are in alignment, the integrity shows, and that's going to reflect in the conversation, that's going to reflect in your questions, in your interaction with the client, and that's going to result in a higher degree of trust. What about frequency of contact? So if a client is paying you for, or let's say a client wants to have one session in a fortnight and says that, okay, maybe for this objective that I want to work with, I think I'm looking for about 6 to 8 sessions, maybe 2 sessions a month, kind of a thing. But you know, once I start taking some of these actions, I know I'm going to have a lot of activity, and maybe I need some extra support from you at that point in time. Would you be okay if I called you up, irrespective of our scheduled calls? How would you like to respond to that?
I think we should be very clear about this, because if the client wants to, you know, say call me at 9 or 10 in the night, or say early morning 5 or 6, that doesn't make sense. So we should be very clear about this. Say it should be clearly mentioned in the contract. I mean, we should be very clear about this with our client.
We should be very transparent. Absolutely. We should be very transparent about what is my availability like. And what kind of flexibility can I offer you or not? Okay, so for example, you know, if first half of my day, you know, is committed during the weekdays, I'll not be available. But yes, if you do send me a mail or a message, I will certainly respond back to you at the earliest. Within the day, I will certainly respond back to you. Otherwise, I think, you know, once in a fortnight is okay. However, you know what, Meghna, I do feel that for the first few sessions, maybe fortnight is too far apart. Maybe for the first 2 or 3 conversations, we should be having more frequent conversations, and then we can settle down into a fortnightly rhythm. That's what I think we'll need to structure the engagement. So whatever you have in mind logically, help the client understand where you're coming from, what is making sense, and why are you proposing what you're suggesting, right? And have a consensus, come to a mutual agreement. But irrespective, be transparent. What is your availability? What kind of flexibility are you able to offer? Okay. And finally, depth of the conversation has a lot of bearing, the most bearing, in fact, in terms of going to trust. When I'm saying something, do I sound like I really mean it? Or am I saying it because it's sounding good? Am I talking at a surface level, or am I really able to demonstrate? So if I say, oh, I have coached at least 25 CXOs, and the client's next question is, what kind of industry, which companies? And I'm like, okay, I can't tell you because it's confidential. So obviously, if I'm talking at that level, the client is not getting any substance from my conversation. I could choose to still maintain the confidentiality and say that, look, I've worked maybe 2 people in banking, 3 in the pharma industry, 4 from a asset management company. I could have testimonials, but I would need to check in with my clients if they are comfortable sharing their details, because as you can probably understand, these are very, very senior professionals. They really value their privacy. So I understand the need for you to figure out which level I've coached at, but I would need to check in with my client. And you know what? I would offer you the same amount of privacy and confidentiality that I do to any of my clients. It'd be unfair for me to share details without checking with them. If it's okay, let me check in with a couple of my clients and come back to you. So I'm still saying the same thing, right? Still saying the same thing. I'm still not giving a name, but I'm talking at a deeper level. I'm explaining, I'm helping them understand, connect the dots much better in terms of where am I coming from. Very, very fundamental to building trust. Make sense?
Yeah, well put. Excellent. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Lovely. Setting expectations. Okay. Again, extremely critical. See, coaching conversations are very, very organic conversations. Even as, you know, even after having 4 conversations with a person, you're not sure what is going to come up in the 5th conversation. So you need to set expectations right from the beginning. Before you start the coaching engagement, some of the elements that we look at expectation setting: psychological, professional, as well as administrative, because this is our opportunity to, was that Seema who said, now we are talking?
Yes.
Now we're talking. We are at contracting. So psychological contracting. What's a contract? Okay, let me, before I explain contracting, what's a contract? Guys, none of my questions are trick questions, okay?
It's an agreement.
It's agreement between 2 people. No?
It's an agreement. Very simply put, it's an agreement between 2 people. Hey, you know what? This is what I'm giving. This is what I'm getting. This is what you are giving and what you are getting. So very simply put, it's an agreement between 2 people. Now, in a coaching context, the agreement can be at 3 levels. First of all, psychological. Okay. So as a coach, am I the more experienced person in the conversation?
Not really.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, let me hear a few more voices.
Should be.
Should
More
be.
experienced.
Can't decide till I really find out more about him or her.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the fundamental rule of coaching, folks, it's a conversation of equals, always. Okay. What I am more experienced as a coach, as somebody who has practiced a particular methodology for a longer time, it's the process of coaching that does not make me an expert on another human being's life. Okay. So always, it's a conversation of equals. It's a partnership. It's a gentle dance between the coach and the client, and that should be very clearly and upfront stated to the client that it's a relationship of equals. It's a safe space. All coaching conversations are completely confidential. You respect a person's going to come up with a lot of personal sharing. Even if it doesn't seem personal to us, when we listen to it, it's extremely personal to the person who's sharing. Those are their fears, their dreams, their vision, something that's holding them back, their emotions. Okay, it's very personal. The associations that they have for things that are below the waterline, okay, very deep and very personal. So it's a safe space. Okay, so first of all, psychological contracting, that it's what are we getting into, what is the coaching relationship going to be like over the course of our engagement. Okay. Second critical element, what is my professional contract? I will turn up, I will coach. Look, if it wasn't for this whole COVID pandemic scenario, I would be meeting you one-on-one in your office. But right now we're going to do virtual coaching sessions for some time. If things are better, maybe we can figure out a way to meet. No, we will not meet. I will connect with you. I will deliver 20 hours of coaching. I will deliver 10 sessions of coaching, whatever it is. But what it is that you are committing to professionally, and especially if you are using any specializations or any, any specific tools, skills, competencies around coaching that you're going to bring into the relationship. I'm going to start with, such and such assessment or such and such tool to understand you a lot better. And it'll give you this insights. It'll give you this clarity before we get started. And it's possibly going to help you determine where you want to go. I'm going to debrief you on this. I'm certified, I'm not certified, whatever, it could be something around their requirements. It could be around what kind of goals they want to work with, what kind of impact they're looking for. Am I comfortable? Have I done that nature of work? Am I comfortable doing that nature of work? So what's my professional agreement with the client? And finally, what's my administrative agreement? What are they signing up for? So are there commercials involved? Is there, agreed frequency of coaching? Is there a tenure of coaching and so on? That's the commercial / administrative part. I think there is a reference agreement that's also there. That's also part of your study guide, which you can refer to. But again, it's not cast in stone. Please do feel free to modify and edit as per your requirement. But at these, setting the expectations is a very important part of helping the client arrive at an informed decision. Sorry, I had, Nama, did you have your hand up as I was talking?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to know one thing, that when we are talking, when we have to be clear at this point of time,
yeah,
and the client wishes for, say, 2 sessions a month, and you feel that he or she may need more. So you think it's advisable to say, okay, we should go for 4 sessions instead of once a week we should be meeting, or we should just be discreet about it and let time pass and let the client himself realize that they need more sessions?
Okay, so it's a great question, Nama, and you gave a fantastic response as well. Okay, I would normally not prescribe, because you don't want to tell a client that, hey, this is your first conversation, you're still doing discovery. So you don't want to tell a client, hey, you know what, you won't be able to do this in 2 sessions. I don't think 2 sessions are going to be adequate. What I would instead say is that, normally in my past experience, when I work with these kind of objectives or this kind of requirement, my experience has been that it has benefited the client by having a more frequent connect, especially to start with. I would suggest we experiment with that. Maybe we do a first couple of sessions and then take a call. So I would bring it to clients' attention that there is a better way. I feel there is a better way of doing this, and here's what I would suggest. But avoid prescribing, avoid suggesting that please do it like this will work, this will not work. So avoid going the definitive and prescriptive way. It just doesn't work for coaching. And always check in with the client. Eventually, when the engagement commences, Nama, you will have the option to say, hey, you know what, we've connected a couple of times. What do you think? Is this adequate? And it's okay to share that you feel as a coach it's not adequate, and still always allow the client to take the decision. Enable options, but allow them to take the decision. So I would say that I would propose this. If the client still says no, let's go with once in a fortnight. I don't have any more time than time. I can't make any more time. I've got too much going on. That's the truth for them. You won't be able to fight it. And why waste your energy in any case? He wants to go ahead. He wants to work on an objective. He's making the time. He's making the most time that he thinks he can at that point in time. That's what his reality is. Until you have an opportunity to explore and find out more and help him increase or expand his awareness in any other direction, unfortunately, that's what his reality is. Yeah. Okay. All right. Are we good so far? Psychological, professional, administrative?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Just checking in with everybody. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at your coach study guides.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So do that. And
actually, coach study guides have been wait. Sorry. So coach study guide has been shared with them today only. So from the
Okay.
next week onwards, definitely they will come prepared.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the way the expectation has been set. Now this is like, we better do it next week onwards.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, you will ask, Seema, you will ask much better questions, okay?
You mean to say I'm not asking good questions now? Ouch.
Not at all. Not at all. You will come, trust me when I say you will ask better questions, I really mean you will ask better questions, because you will come in with a context already done, right? And then you are connecting what you've already looked through, even skimmed through, doesn't matter. You don't have to spend hours and hours. And then you're looking at connecting it with the discussion that's going on in the class. You will make a lot more connections, and hence you will, level up on your own thinking as well as your grasping and asking questions, everything.
I'm sure. Thank you.
It's just helpful. It's just, jokes aside, it's just helpful. Okay.
Yeah, just a quick observation.
Just one question, Neha.
Uh,
Sorry. See, one of yeah. See, one of those skills while coming into contact, and right, your empathy.
Yeah.
Do you think as a coach that we should have an empathy, or it's going to be a negative also?
It is.
Sometimes right, too much of sympathy can spoil the party.
Okay. Before I answer that question, let me ask everybody, what does empathy do? If I have empathy, what does that do for me?
Helps me connect with the other person emotionally.
Makes me sensitive.
And I can look at things from others' perspective.
Helps me understand a point of view.
Helps me understand a point of view, makes me sensitive.
Person who is talking to me, and I relate to that person. I won't sympathize. I would understand, and I would understand what he or she.
Vinny, your voice is very, very feeble.
It's like being in other person's shoes.
Being in another person's shoes. Okay, so all of y'all have given some great answers about what empathy enables. So now let's connect that with what are we trying to do right now? Where are we in our pyramid? In terms of the coaching triangle, where are
we?
Connecting. So now tell me, is empathy a good thing or not?
Of course it is.
Of course it is.
Essential.
I love this class. I love this class.
Absolutely essential.
Of course, it's a good thing. So yes, and Abdul, to your question, can too much of empathy be a bad thing? No. No, I don't think so, because it helps you understand where a person is coming from. As a coach, I would only be mindful of not losing the presence that you have as a coach. See, I can empathize if a client of mine is extremely upset. Being empathetic is being sensitive to understanding why the person is upset, how he's put in the effort, how much of how his effort is not translated into some result or outcome he was looking for, and so on. Now the problem is, if I go to the extreme where I lose my presence, that's the only way I can be of no value to my client. If I become upset with my client, then I am no use as a coach.
Yes. So I agree with Meghna, and just to add, and Abdur, your question is very apt. And if I have to simply respond, and of course I will explain like how Meghna has done, simply respond, the answer is too much empathy is bad. And I will go further, too much of everything is bad. Right. Right. And now I will explain why I am saying that the too much empathy is bad generically. There will be many emotional scenes what you will see during your coaching journey. So the coach has to not only act as a coach, but coach has to also act as an observer, a third person who is observing the coaching session. The coaching is a very result-oriented process, right? The coaching is, but that result is achieved through conversation, through intense conversation. But what is the goal of a coach? Goal of a coach is to bring client back to the discussion related to the goal. Now, for example, if the client is crying, and any empathetic person means, for example, I also cry when I see movies, right? But it is all right as far as the movie watching is concerned. Now, in a coaching session, if I start crying, right, because I am empathetic, that is not the right competency of a coach. So the coach has to acknowledge the emotions of the client, not get immersed in the emotions of the client. Okay.
Great, great.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Another quick observation. Sorry. Yeah. So, so whatever you have explained on the trust, intimacy, all those things will come in picture as a transactional thing, like the frequency of contract and depth of conversation. So I see these are all the things. If you see the disc model, the C person will be really liking that. And but if you are an influencer or a S kind of person, we should have the trust and intimacy should be built according to the behavior. So what is that? What is your take on that?
Yeah. So so Meghna, let me take this.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So Deepak, fantastic question.
Yeah, sorry, this is Lakshmi here.
Acha, Lakshmi, a fantastic question. And if
So what is the
you
question,
all,
sir? We didn't get it. Sir, we couldn't hear.
Acha, you couldn't hear?
Could you repeat the question again, please?
Acha, okay, so I'm going to repeat the question, the
Yes,
crux
sir.
of the question. So the crux of the question is what Deepak is saying. For example, if you are talking very systematically, methodically, contracting, process, number of sessions. So a C behavioral style person, right, who is methodical, systematic, and analytical will like it. And that will also help C person, C behavioral pattern person to connect with you better because you are talking his or her language. What Lakshmi is saying, that is, for example, there is a S person or a I person, influencer, right? Or a, say, S person, then too much of a process oriented, too much of a method might disconnect the client. Fantastic point. Fantastic point. So what I will advise all of you, like we have given you the DISC test even at the even before the start of the first session. Why? Because you need to understand the DISC profile of you as well as your other fellow classmates. That will allow you to understand from where they are coming. For example, now to ask this particular, to respond specifically, for example, there is a S person, and during the discovery session, you understand now whether you only have to conduct a test, because at the time of discovery session, you may or may not have conducted the test. Most probably, you may not have conducted the test because it can be your very first interaction with the coachee. But you will get the cues from the way the person is talking. And if you understand that the person is looking for one-to-one personal connection and not necessarily the detailed processes and numbers, then you have to adopt. So like Meghna has rightly stated, so you can say the same point in a different way, right? Because ultimately you need to create clarity. You need to establish the process. But with the different people, you will be different. For example, if there is a C behavioral person, you will talk about the method, process, flow chart, and numbers and the timings and all that very precise. If the person is D, you have to talk very brief. You can't talk to a D person for say 1 hour because they are always in a hurry, right? So you have to talk very goal oriented. Okay, what is your objective of looking for a coaching? And if you talk for that particular objective, D person will get the information, and the agreement signing is a part to fulfill that particular objective. So you don't have to discuss the entire agreement or the terms and condition with a D person because he is looking for the overall objective. But if there is a S person, you will basically try to connect with that particular person. You will say the same thing, maybe in a story way, maybe in a metaphor way. You will share your personal experience. You will share the experience of your client because they are looking for the relationship. For a I person, you will allow I person to talk and express. You will talk less during the discovery session, but you will allow I person to talk more and ask I person to share from where they are coming from, what is their story, right? What is their idea, right? And how this particular, and also you will use this opportunity to indirectly influence them by saying them, when you will become coach, you will become famous and the people will recognize you, people will respect you. Why? Because the I person is looking for social recognition. So you will utilize the behavioral profile, even indirectly convincing them and building trust and intimacy and adapting what you are talking. It means your content of the talking should be related to the behavioral profile. So fantastic, Lakshmi. I think you are understanding it well. And if everybody understands it well, then I think your conversions will be better, number one. And the conversion is one part, but it is important part. Means I don't want to underestimate the conversion part. But after the conversion also, you will keep building that particular rapport, trust, and relationship.
Yeah, so quick thought. So before that disc was, yeah, you have very well summarized. First of all, thanks for that. So before this disc test and also what I will start kind of, right? So I will ask them two questions. So what is that one thing you liked in this world? What is that one thing you want to change in this world? And I will leave them a long rope to lead the conversation. By this, how they are approaching in this way, I will analyze what kind of DISC. Accordingly, we will proceed. Thanks. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Very nice, very nice.
Lakshmi is faculty in making.
Thank you.
Lovely. Right. Okay, so one of the things that you do want to do early on before you actually get into an engagement is establish some boundaries. What is acceptable, what is not, what are our rules of engagement, things that are permissible, things that are not permissible. So for example, if a client asks to meet in a coffee shop for a coaching session, do you think it's a good idea or it's not a good idea?
No, it's not.
Not a good idea.
No.
And why not?
Because there will be people around, so he might feel a bit intimidated to talk openly about his problem. He might not be comfortable, very unlikely, because he's coming for coaching.
And we cannot discuss personal things, right?
You may not be able to discuss sensitive things. Even if the client is having any kind of an exploratory conversation, there will be constant distractions, right? Other people coming, going, and exiting. You know, you've got to sit in a coffee shop, so that's why you've got to order something. Somebody's coming to take your order. Ask if you want more water, if you want more something else, getting your check. Just too many distractions for the client to focus and have a thinking conversation. Okay, so it's important. So some of these things are hygiene. Mentally also, what's the space that they are in? Are they able to define, label emotionally where they are, what kind of a day they've had? Are they able to carve out the time, clear their space mentally, clear their space physically, be in a place that is conducive to having a deep conversation? I will often tell clients, even if I'm doing a virtual conversation, I'm often going to tell client, there's my phone, I'm putting it away. It's switched off, it's gone. I don't want to get distracted while we talk. Okay, so I'm just telling a client that, look, my phone is distracting, I'm putting it away because this conversation is important. It's okay to ask the client, would you like to do the same? Okay, it's perfectly okay to say that coffee shop is a bad idea because we are at a place where it's going to be critical conversations. You're going to be exploring something that is so meaningful and so significant. I wouldn't want us to be distracted. I would want us both to be 100% present in the conversation. Otherwise, reasonably straightforward. It's also okay at this point in time when you're talking about setting boundaries in terms of your availability, your timing. I would prefer if you send me a mail, or I would prefer if you send me a WhatsApp. I always respond to my WhatsApp messages. If you call, I may or may not be able to respond. So it's perfectly okay to say that, please don't expect that any time of the day, if you call me, I'm going to be able to take your call and talk to you. I'll sometimes tell my clients that, feel free to call me. Don't worry if I'm not able to take your call. If depending, as I'm often on Zoom sessions, and if I'm not able to take your call, it just means I'm in the middle of something else. And as soon as I can get to it, I will come back to you. So I tell them that, okay, it's not that I don't want you to call me, but don't expect that anytime you reach out, I should be available. That may not be possible for me. So setting your own boundaries. One of the things we all often struggle with is when and how to say no. Okay. So first of all, knowing our own comfort, what am I flexible on? Where am I able to flex? Where am I not able to flex? Also, what kind of coaching is this? Is this something that I'm engaging in professionally? Am I doing a social cause? Am I doing some pro bono work? Am I doing some peer coaching? So what kind of a coaching contract do I need here? Okay. And being respectful of time. I am willing to commit time upfront into an initiative that is going to be of meaning and significance for you to shift things forward in your life. The least I expect, even if you're a client, the least I expect is you commit the same. So I will be respectful of your time, but please also be respectful of my time. So this is a good place to say that, if you want to cancel your session, you please need to inform me 72 hours, 48 hours in advance. You please let me know at least a couple of days so that I can release that time on my calendar. If you don't do that, I'm still going to go ahead and charge you, because I would have blocked time on my calendar. I wouldn't have made any other commitment. Okay. It's perfectly okay to say that. So figure out what your boundaries are and be very direct, be candid, be respectful, but open in communicating that, look, this is how I engage. These are my rules of engagement in a coaching relationship. Okay. Learn to say no, because there are clients you will find who will have unreasonable demands. I had a client who kept referring other clients, and everybody that he referred was supposed to be a pro bono client. And the first one was okay for an hour or so. The second one was okay for an hour. And then the third one, I just had to say no. He can't keep coming. He can't keep sending people, because he wants to rescue people, and he wants to not do anything else except say, hey, you know what? I know a coach. She was fantastic. She really helped me out. Just have a chat with her. He's not losing anything by saying that, right? But I got to say no. And then eventually I had to tell him that, listen, we had a coaching engagement that was of a particular design, and this was our contract. And if you are referring somebody to me, you've got to understand that I have to invest time, and I'm going to have to demand some compensation for the time that I'm investing. And after that, I got no references from that particular client. Okay, so there are times when clients will be unreasonable. There are times when clients will impinge you. They will try to push you even within the norms of the coaching, conversations. So, but what do you think? No, but you are my coach. How has your experience been? What do you see other people doing? No, you have so many people you must be working with. What do they do? What would you have done? So clients will push you, and you have to bring it back to say that, okay, I'm coaching you. If you like my suggestion, I'm very happy to share my experience with you at a later point in time. But what this conversation is about you, and it's about, exploring your thinking and what do you think is the best way to go forward. So there are times when you have to bring them back and say, okay, this is not how coaching works. And be okay, be comfortable doing that, okay? Because you know what a coach does and what works in a coaching session. The client doesn't know that, and it's okay to let them know. Okay, a little bit more. Using our conversations, planning the engagement overall, the relationship. We spoke about this a little bit briefly. How do you want to engage in the relationship overall? Okay. And on the right side, you have being prepared, planning, and on the left side, there's a phrase that says that preparing for conversations that help you stay more in the moment. Okay, and that seems like a little bit of a dichotomy, and I want to invite some of your thoughts on that. What do you guys think?
What exactly you're asking us?
My question is, you read that phrase on the left side, that preparing for conversations will help you be more in the moment and focus on the conversation with the coachee. Whereas our conversation so far has all been around, we need to prepare. This whole today's entire session is around how do we prepare, what do we prepare. So I'm just inviting thoughts on, is this a dichotomy? What is this about being in the moment versus planning, preparing?
It's more like what we learned in our previous session, like some deep breathing exercise or some, some activity that we do to, just calm ourselves. There might be 100,000 things going on in our own head related to our personal or professional work, but to just, calm down and be in the moment and focus on the present conversation that we are going to have with the coachee.
Okay. And I want to pick up on that word present.
May I?
What is that about?
Go ahead.
Okay, I think to me what it means is preparing for the conversation is more of how would you connect with the person, what kind of questions would you ask to have a connect with that person to establish the relationship, and while the person is sharing, being in the moment, giving an attentive ear to the person rather than framing an answer or thinking about what would I ask next. So being in the moment with respect to the discussion and the sharing that is happening.
Beautiful. Very well said. Very well said.
Thank you.
So what is the purpose of planning?
And one more.
Sorry.
No. Sorry.
Go ahead, Abdur. Go ahead.
Yeah. And one more thing is, as a coach, right, we should be more focusing on the present and the future.
Yeah. Yeah. The present and the future. So future, we are helping the client create, but we want to be at present in the moment with the client. And if I'm thinking of 5 things that I have not done, or I should be telling, or how do I tell, and did I understand, but where is this guy actually coming from? If I am doing multitasking mentally, I will miss the cues, the unsaid things that the client is, saying, but not in words. I'll miss the change in body language. I'll fail to notice change in expressions. I will fail to notice shifts in energy. Okay, these are all important parts of listening and being in the conversation and paying attention. And ultimately, everything that we are doing, right? Getting our rapport right, building trust, all of that. If I'm not even able to listen and be there with the person, I'm not going to be able to do that. So the purpose of being prepared is that's sorted in my brain. In those mental tabs, I can shut them down and I can focus 100% in the moment. I can stay with the client focused on the conversation. Okay, and this is an essence of coaching, not just for discovery, but throughout we'll keep talking about being in the moment and being present with the coaching. With me so far?
Yes.
This is also, I think, related to mindful coaching practices, right? I think
Is there something you'd like to share, Jude, about mindfulness?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about, the similarities or maybe the differences between coaching presence and mindful coaching practices, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're talking about a lot of planning.
Yeah.
But when you get into the coaching conversation, right, it's all about the presence, right? Like you've been explaining, it's all about the presence.
Yeah.
And how can we bring in some, specific mindful coaching techniques into the practice, right? So we don't get too much carried away by the plans, right? Or too rigid on the plans, right? So it's about going with the...
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Jude, it is being mindful. It is being a little aware and cognizant of what is going on in the immediate environment, what the client is processing. At the same time, being gentle enough to hold what agenda you are holding it very lightly, very gently, allowing the coachee to direct the way forward. And this is a very delicate dance that we keep doing throughout the entire coaching, right from the beginning of prep, and right from the beginning and from a discovery session. We will continue to engage in this manner with the coachee. Absolutely right. You have to be mindful and you have to keep the balance right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely. Deepak, you've got your hand raised. You have a question?
Yes, one thing just I would, if I can ask, that would it be okay to add this as a thought process that even we are being in the moment, but the way our minds have been driven so far in any conversation, there is always a hidden agenda or a desperation, or sharing your thoughts, knowledge, experience, trying to convince someone. Then actually that being in moment is also somewhere getting diluted part.
Yeah.
So yes, so not to basically have any kind of desperation or agenda of I should find this guy somehow, let me impress this, let me hear it. So somewhere maybe that will be part of training, but I'm just trying to say that being in moment means be present in present.
So what is your question, Deepak?
My question is that would it be a right thought to consider this factor that the agenda, any hidden agenda, should not be there when you are actually being in that moment?
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. So fantastic question, Deepak. When you are having a conversation, I think the two things that we want to distinguish, both from a discovery perspective as well as any coaching conversation at all, right? So you do have an objective as a coach. You are holding the process. You are holding a process. So it's not that you have no agenda, as in you don't do you get into a conversation without any objective as a professional? No. So if you're getting into the discovery with the aspiration that it should be a great conversation, I'm going to show up as a professional, qualified, competent coach. I'm going to convert this client, and I'm going to design a fantastic coaching engagement for this person. It's an objective that you have, and maybe that's the back of your mind. That's your agenda. That's perfectly fine. But when you are in the conversation, then you suspend the conversion track. You suspend that this is a client conversation. At the end of outcome of this conversation is a win or not for me. You suspend that. When you're in the conversation, you are in the conversation, paying attention to what's going on with the client. You are in the moment at that point in time. You're receptive, you're open-minded, you're non-judgmental, you're mindful, you're staying present with the coachee, you're everything. At the moment, you've suspended your agenda for the purpose of being attentive and present in the conversation.